welcome to Sakshi TV special immigration show with lawyer Srinivas Kaveti from Kaveti Law Firm. Please note that Sakshi TV now has 3 other law shows also. That is on Tuesdays at 5:30 p.m. EST with lawyer Srinivas, Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. EST with attorney Prashanti Reddy, Thursdays at 5:30 p.m. EST with attorney Chand Parvat Neni, and on Fridays at 5:30 p.m. EST with Banu and Indra. Please tune in to ask your questions. If you are an immigration attorney and would like to join our special shows, please email us at usa@sakshi.com or call us at 8667257441. Before we begin the show, please note that the information provided on the show is not legal advice and for general informational purposes only. Sakshi TV or its agents will not be responsible for the use of information. If you need any specific legal advice or any contact information, you can definitely contact the lawyer itself. So Mr. Kaveti's law firm is headquartered in New York City and is an international law firm with a global footprint operating through their offices in Australia, Asia, Europe, and North America. Their innovative approach to legal matters is maybe one of the greatest reasons why his law firm and he is the topmost priority for his clients. So without any further delay, let's get on to today's topic. Hello, Mr. Kaveti. I hope you're doing really well. It's amazing having you on our show again. How are you doing?
Good, thank you, Shivan.
Yes. So, Mr. Srinivas, I thought today we can discuss a little about rights of international students. I think this is, again, a very important topic, especially for students who travel to USA. And, once they step into USA, they, a lot of students are confused about, what kind of rights do they have. So can you give a basic introduction about, just how we're going to talk and what are we going to talk about on this show?
Yes, I guess I would address these issues in at least 4 segments. One would be, first of all, what is a student visa? And what is an F1 visa and what is an M1 visa? Many people don't know what is an M1 visa. A F1 visa is for academic programs, and M1 visa, which is called vocational programs. When you see back in our countries or any vocational schools like polytechnics or ITIs, people can come to America even not doing any bachelor's degree. They could also come for a 1-year program here. And there are programs for photography. There are even programs for hairdressing and programs for media studies. If somebody wants to be a journalist also, they can come, and some editing, web designing, stuff like that. So those visas are called M1 visa, which is called vocational programs. M1 visas are not very popular in India, but it's getting popular. And there's other type of student visas when they come. It's called J1, which is when they come to US, they also have a work authorization, and they also can study and work program. That's called J visa. So most of the time, people come for hotel management jobs, and people come on training. They can also come and work in law firms or hospitals. That's called J1. These are all considered to be, study and work programs. F1, you can work in the campus, not M1. But, there are issues like once you finish your academic program, you can get your CPTs, OPTs, and stuff like that. So there are whole 9 yards for F1 and M1 regulations.
Yes. So, Mr. Srinivas, the first question that I want to ask you is, F1, a lot of students get into USA once they get their F1, right? So what are some regulations of F1 and what are some regulations that the student must expect or they can expect, once they enter into the country after, getting their F1s?
The first and foremost things, once they come to United States, most of the time students come to America with 2-3 I-20s. And they have a visa. When they come into the country, the first and foremost thing is they need to go to the school and report and enroll themselves. And that is the first condition precedent. And once you enroll, again, the question comes is, how many credits you have to take? You have to be in a full course. What is the meaning of full course? C-O-U-R-S-E, course. That means you have to take 12 credit points. So that could be 3 or 4 subjects. So, some subjects are 3 grade points, some are 2. So if you're taking 2 grade points, you have to take, 12. Total, it has to be 12. It cannot be below 12. And second information, which students have to know, that they cannot enroll into too many online courses, because many schools and many students are thinking, oh, we can do an online course. No, you have to be in the classroom for 20 hours a week. That is mandatory. And number 3, if you get a job in the campus, you can work 20 hours a week. And if you don't have a job in the campus, you cannot work outside. And sometimes, the schools get information that you're working outside. We had a client, he was, DSO saw him working in a store, and she went and terminated his status. So the DSO and PDSO, what is a PDSO and DSO? It's called designated school official, and they are representatives on behalf of immigration. They're sitting and working in the school, but they're employees of school. Most of the times, to be a PDSO and a DSO, you have to be a US citizen. So you're given an access to ICE, immigration website, ICE website, service website, so that they can issue I-20s, and they monitor students, and they issue initial I-20s or continuous I-20s. So these designated school officials, they undergo training with immigration. So they are like immigration compliance officers. Many times students don't understand these things, and you're required to pay the fees and be in the classroom for 20 hours. The other biggest problem, what I come across, we had some clients, their status have been terminated. I mean, one has to understand the way we do it in India, that if the professor gives you an assignment, they do a group assignment. Unless and until the professor says you can do a group assignment, if you are copying for somebody, that amounts to plagiarism, you'll be suspended. And it's also an offense. And we had clients that they've been suspended. The suspension and dismissal, these are 2 different things again. Suspension means you're terminated forever. You got to go home. And the other thing is, many times students, they get in trouble with law. Recently, we had a client, the guy got arrested by drink and driving. When the police detained him, they found that this guy was also taking some drugs. So when you get arrested, the school has a right to terminate you, because you have come to America to study full time and not to work, and not to get engaged in unlawful activities, things like that. So it's you got to maintain your status. And the other thing is, most of the times when the students come, they go below their, they take less courses. When they take below 12, then less than 12 courses, then the school could terminate you. So these are certain things. And I mean, there are so many other requirements one has to understand, that students have to be in the classroom, have to do their assignments, they have to maintain their GPAs, they have to attend the classes. And sometimes we had clients, they say, oh, they don't go to school. Just like in India, their absenteeism. When they see that you're below 20%, 30% attendance, the school can terminate you. The DSO can terminate you. The professor recommends. And things like this, because in our country, especially these engineering grad students, they bunk classes and they copy assignments. And sometimes they fail, they repeat. Things like that, you can do it. So these are the things which they have to keep in mind. And you have to pay the fees also. If you don't pay the fees too, and you don't enroll in time, there is a certain period of time. If you have a break, you have 15, 20 days grace period, you have to go back and enroll. And sometimes kids, they don't report to the school, they change their addresses. They don't report to the school. And change in circumstances in terms of, sometimes people get sick and they don't go to school. But you got to go back to DSO and let them know that you're sick. And sometimes you're hospitalized. So things like this, you have to keep in touch with your school designated officials. You have to keep in touch with your international advisors. And if you don't, you get terminated. The other day, we had a call from a client. She had a COVID and she didn't go to classes, but she was supposed to report to the school and she didn't go to classes for 3-4 weeks. And the DSO terminated her. And then she calls us and say, I've been terminated. I said, did you report to the school? Did you go to the hospital? Did you get any medical reports? The answer is no. So things like that, it becomes difficult when your visa gets terminated. And reinstatement is very tough. So it's not that easy. We will talk about that in another few minutes.
Yes. So, Mr. Srinivas, another thing is termination of F1. I think this is something that every student is scared of. So, can you exactly tell us what is termination of an F1 or F1 visa, and what can be the main reasons or options? Like, why do they get terminated?
Many times the student gets terminated. I mean, I just had a call last week from Texas, and from this Texas University, 70 students have been terminated. 70. They're all Indians. So, and this girl called me. I said, why did they terminate? She said, because most of them failed one subject. If you fail in one subject, you cannot be terminated. You could repeat. But many times, if your percentage goes much below, and if you're not academically progressing, then they could terminate you. The second reason why they get terminated is a no-show. They don't go to classes, and they don't do their assignments, and they don't pay the fees. And after one semester, there's a break, and you have to go back and again register yourself. You don't do it, and the system gets terminated, and school DSO terminates you because you did not pay the fees. People, when they have financial hardships, the beauty in America is, let's say you came on an F1, you paid for one semester fees. Let's say your parents got sick in Corona, or your father got Corona, or your family died. So there's change in business circumstances, change in your financial situation. Your family met with an accident, or your father or parents who sponsor got some financial issues. You became bankrupt. Things like that. Things always happen in the world. So you could go back and speak to the school, and you could also apply for a work authorization. You can ask for a deferment. You can speak to the DSO. You could apply to the immigration for a work authorization too. We have helped many kids. Sometimes countries like there's a war. Sometimes there is tsunami. There's some earthquakes, natural disasters. People, do come to us. We help them. So things like that, they should keep in touch with some immigration lawyers. And most of the universities have immigration lawyers in campus. Sometimes there are some lawyers they work with. The students have to get in touch with the immigration lawyers attached to the university. And the other thing is, the other reason the schools are terminating is if you don't pay the fees. But you can go back to the school and ask for a payment plan. Schools do give you a payment plan. What does it mean? You pay installments every week or every month. So you got to be on the top of the game when you come to study in America, and you can be doing illegally work. And I come across students driving an Uber and driving a Lyft. That's unlawful, because you're not allowed to drive and make money, because that amounts to employment. So students are doing it. So when they get caught, or because when you make money, of course, it's a white money because it's coming in your bank account, things like that. These are serious violations. And the other problem sometimes I come across, students, when they are sharing the apartment, they drink and they fight, and they end up in assault and criminal cases. In such cases, also the schools can terminate you. So there are things you have to be careful. And you could apply for a CPT, and it has to be done lawfully. And if you're working on OPT, you have to keep in touch with the school, and there's certain reports to be filed with the school. And those are the issues are very serious in nature if you don't get in touch with your DSO. And the many other reasons, there are umpteen number of reasons why they get terminated. In the SEVIS website, in the USCIS websites, it's all very clear. So why students get terminated. So one has to be careful because you came to complete your full-time course. You got to complete it. And after that, get into CPT and H1s and OPT. We all come to America to study and get a CPTs and OPTs and H1s, get a green cards and citizenship. So it's a long way to go, but you got to comply the law. If you don't comply the law, and once you get terminated, what happens? You have an option of reinstatement too. And sometimes you can also leave the country and come back into US. So reinstatement is another process. I mean, that's another question we can take it and I can address on that. And you can also leave the country and come back. But you cannot stay in the country for a long time once you get terminated. And the law says you have to apply for a reinstatement within 180 days. If you want to re-enter back, you only have 15, 20 days. You can take another I-20 from the school, go out of the country, and then come back. So, things like that. There are some options available. And sometimes kids do get married. I mean, they apply for an adjustment of status. We have clients, they fall in love with American girls, they marry, they can get a green card. We have done some green cards like that. It's called adjustment of status. So there are so many ways you can be legitimate in America. And there are remedies to get yourself reinstated. We have done a lot of reinstatements from our office, and we've been successful. I mean, there's a process, but you can't wait for 4 months, 6 months, and then come back and say, hey, the more you delay, the less chances you have. It normally takes about 5 to 6 months time.
Yes. So, Mr. Kaveti, another question that I had is like, if this termination goes on, and let's just say, anything that bad the students do, how will that affect the green card process or the H1B? Like, will that affect during that process?
Yes. The other day, we had a client call. The guy was arrested for drink driving, DUI, And then when the police checked, he also had drugs. So next day morning, I think the police reported to the Delhi embassy, and he got an email saying that his visa got revoked. His visa was cancelled. So, one has to be careful. Once you're convicted, sometimes we had, clients, they also get in trouble with law with the woman, sexual assault and things like that. And we had a client, he was chatting on a Facebook with a minor girl, but actually she was not a minor, she was a police officer. And he was chatting with a girl, and she said, I'm a minor. And this young student was chatting with her. And when he went to see her, there were 2 policemen. They arrested him. When they arrested him, because you're, chatting with a minor girl and trying to date a minor girl is an offense. And he was in trouble. He was arrested, and we had to apply for a bail. And what happened, because these are all moral turpitude offenses, they will report to the immigration. Once they report to the immigration, your visa gets terminated and it's on the record. You got arrested, it's on the record. And once you're, even if you're convicted, you might think that, oh, I'm just paying a fine, but that's a conviction. Sometimes they will give a probation or they will give a community service. We had a lot of clients coming back to us saying, oh, yes, I've agreed and I only paid $50 fine, but they gave us a community service. What does it mean? They've asked us to go and clean the parks. That's a conviction. Once you do that, that means you've confessed, you admitted the guilt, it comes on your record. Once it comes on your record, your H1 gets in trouble, because when you're filing an H1, there is a column saying that have you been arrested or do you have any criminal convictions? And if you say yes, you're not get your H1B. And it also affects your green card in the future. Let's say you get married, and then you cannot even get a green card. So, and it's also a problem in the citizenship. And many times you might not get some federal jobs, and because when you go for fingerprints and criminal background check, it comes and you don't get jobs. So one has to be very careful in America when you're a non-immigrant, you're on a student visa, things like this. I mean, many times students don't even know these things. Trying to date a minor, that's another big problem we see, because they think we're coming from India when they're working here or dating girls, they don't know whether these girls are major. Sometimes it could be high school kids. So our boys, when they come here, because of liberty and the independence we have, they all get in trouble with this type of issues. And we had clients. I mean, these are all real cases. So one has to be careful. The kids have to be careful. The other problem, what I see, because many of our Indian students or immigrant students, they work in gas stations at night, and they're working in stores, which is unlawful. And they're selling cigarettes to minors. They're selling liquors to minors, and they're working in gas stations. Sometimes there are problems in the gas stations in the night. Things like this do happen, and when they get arrested, that means you're violating the immigration law. So you don't have no defense, because the school comes to know that you're working outside, and it's a breach of your status. And you're not only getting in trouble with the penal law, with the police, and you're also in trouble with immigration law. And your future there's no future. So these things are very, very important for these students. They have to keep this in mind. And many times they come back to us and say, "Oh, sir, I don't know the law of the country." That's not a defense. Not knowing the law is not a defense. So you got to be careful. I think
Yes.
these are very important points for kids.
Yes, definitely. Mr. Srinivas, now that I just wanted to ask your opinion, and you've been in this firm for so long, and you've done so many different cases. Is there any special case, anything that you want to share to the viewers? Because I'm sure they'll be very interested to know anything that happened to you.
Well, these days we are getting a lot of calls during the time of COVID, and these days, we're getting a lot of calls in terms of kids getting in trouble with drink driving, kids getting in trouble with not paying the school fees, kids not taking they're taking too many online classes. That's unlawful. If you register yourself with too many online classes, you're in trouble. Your status is in trouble. And working outside, unauthorized employment. And as I said, drugs is another issue. And sometimes kids go to nightclubs. These young kids, because they're in America, they go on a Friday party in a nightclubs, they get drunk. And I don't know, because most of the kids, they do one night stand and stuff like that. You got to be careful, because we had clients, they would have, sexual encounters with the girls, and later these drunken women, because even if they give consent, it's not a valid consent. And after they become conscious, they go and report. They say, "Hey, this guy has committed some sort of a sexual assault," and stuff like that. So things like that. And kids, especially immigrant kids, don't know these things, that they're thinking, "Oh, this is outside the campus and we're not doing anything." But things like this get in trouble. They also, they will be in trouble, because in trouble with law, get arrested, and they lose their status. In the future, their dreams get shattered. We have handled such cases. It's not easy. There are a couple of other cases which I want to share. There's these young student kids, especially, there's a kleptomania, kids going and stealing from the shops. Sometimes they think it's fun. And I had some clients, I don't want to give the names. These are young girls, 4 or 5 girls, goes to, Macy's and all these, women's stores, they steal things and they get caught. Young girls, they think it's exciting. Sometimes people have kleptomania, they enjoy doing it. They get caught, shoplifting, a very serious offense. If it is more than $500, it's a grand larceny. That means you could go to jail for 1 year. If it is less than $500 or $900, it's called misdemeanor. It comes on record, because they have cameras, and you don't have no plea. You've stolen the goods, and they can see in a camera. These are real cases which we handled from my firm, and we were successful in defending them. But the other thing is, you have to be careful. I had clients like this. And not the boys. I come across mostly young ladies, because they all go, and it's like a fun for them. Sometimes it's fun, and sometimes they have kleptomania, which is a psychological disorder from our childhood. And it affects your immigration status, your student status, your H-1B status. I mean, it costs a lot of money for defending yourself. And these couple of clients they spent $10,000 just to defend them. And
Yes.
on the top of it, it's on the record. So when they went outside America, when they were coming, the immigration officers pulled them. They said, "Hey, there's an arrest record on you guys. What happened?" But in the meantime, we handled it and we got the case dismissed. But the other defenses where these kids have, I want them to know. And again, this is not a legal advice, but if you're doing an offense for the first time, America gives you a deal. You know, they say,
Yeah.
okay, because that's the first time you're doing it's a first offense, we will excuse you. We will reduce your punishment. If it is a
Yes.
felony, we'll give it to a misdemeanor. If it is a misdemeanor, they will say violation. But it's on the
Yes.
record.
We will. Yes, Mr. Kaveti. I think we can definitely continue this topic. The time is short. We can definitely continue this next week too. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for the viewers for tuning in. You're watching Sakshi TV with me, Shivani Raj.